lived in this RV full-time for almost 2 years. We've encountered a spider the size of my hand, 2 tornadoes, and almost 15,000 miles of towing. With all that experience, I'm going to answer what I've loved, what's fallen apart, how did it tow, and would I buy this model again? Let's talk about the things I love first. Number 1, these tires. Number 2, this suspension. I get asked 2 things at gas stations. 1, how does that Tacoma pull that trailer? And 2, did you put new tires on that thing? These are the stock tires on the 175 bunkhouse, and I could not be happier with them. You need the traction in your truck, so the knobbiness of the tires is more for durability on some of the sharp gravel that you can go over when you're getting to your BLM campsites. I haven't had any puncture or blowout problems, even though I've kind of pushed it to the limit with heat. I always make sure that my PSI is good before that. These are supposed to be at 50 PSI when they're cold. And the only time I ever had a flat, it was a valve stem issue. So I was outside of Monument Valley, family vacation, of course, and roadside assistance was 4 hours away, but we got it fixed, took it to Discount Tire, and that tire is now my spare. The suspension really shines on the highway. So it is less about navigating like ruts in a road that have been washed out by mud, and it's more about hitting a pothole at 65. It really smooths out the bumps in the road. If you need a primer on an independent suspension, go back to my first video. There are times I wish I had a double axle, and I think that would really help when I came really off camber. There was a time in Moab that gave me anxiety for the full 2 weeks I was there because I wasn't sure how I was going to get back out without tipping the trailer over. But we made it. Another thing I enjoy about this rig is the space, and the fact that the space doesn't really change if I'm traveling or not. I don't have any slides in this rig, but there's still some area to move about the cabin. If you plan to travel a lot or have very long travel days, the way that your rig looks on the inside when it's slid in or just ready to be underway really determines the comfort and the quickness of how quickly you can turn over your rest stops. I think the thing that makes this rig feel light and airy are 2 things. Number 1, the amount of windows. I have the door open right now, and this giant window, and the skylight. Light is pouring in everywhere. I did take out the dinette. Remember, it would have gone from this wall right through here. And honestly, I recommend doing that. I did have a box built in by a local carpenter that's still going strong. I prop this table up constantly. I've moved to just using this table all the time, so I have a little bit of extra breathing room, and I can store some things down here. Also, there is enough space for a couple of people to move around. I've had me, my mom, and my sister, who are all my size or smaller. It was a little tight, but we all could stand at the same time. Some other models that I was looking at didn't have that. I was looking at an R-Pod, and there just wasn't the floor space to give the type of ease to be able to move about your space. And frankly, it is August 2020, so we just all had the worst year of our lives, and I have been quarantining in this rig, mostly in an RV park in Las Vegas, since March. It wasn't great to quarantine in this space, but I think it was better than the alternatives I had, like a van or one of the R-Pods that I was looking at. Feels a little bit more like a home than a submarine. I do have some plans to do some renovations in the back. I think I might take out the bottom bunk and make it into more of a work area and a place to store some food, and make that top bunk a little bit shorter so it functions more like a shelf. Stay tuned! HGTV 175BH edition. Another thing I love, 16 days off-grid. I killed my battery pretty quickly, so I upgraded and added a second battery to the tongue, and now I have 280 amp hours of lead acid battery. So functionally, that's 140 amp hours. I also bought this 100 amp hour Renogy suitcase and the right connector to connect it to the solar port. Annoyed with checking the volts outside, I added a voltmeter inside with a USB-C and a USB 3.0 port. Those are able to charge things a little bit quicker, and so I can take advantage of the sunshine that I have in the middle of the day when I'm producing a ton of power. With this solar setup, I am usually charged back up from using the battery overnight by noon, and I'm able to charge my laptop with the USB-C, although soon I plan to add a 1000-watt inverter so that I can charge my laptop more rapidly and have just a little bit more of a margin for error. With solar, I can stay off-grid indefinitely. I also do have a 400-watt inverter that's built into the truck, so if I ever need to use my printer or my hair straightener, those have been the two things I've needed to use, I do have the inverter on the truck. I just start it up and start up the inverter. The main limiting factor in how long I'm able to stay off-grid are my water tanks. It's not even the fresh water, even though 52 gallons of fresh water gets people's eyes to bug out of their head when they see a 21-foot travel trailer. My real limiting factor is my gray water. With me being frugal about the type of water that goes down the drain and generally not washing my hair that much, I can make it 16 days without dumping my gray tanks. Depending on the temperature, things might start to get a little bit stinky, but hey, you're living in the woods for free. So in terms of how long that I can take this rig off-grid, that is definitely a love.
The kitchen, the heart of the home. Now, couple pros and cons about this kitchen. Pro, the sink. Now, I'm able to have a tub inside of the sink catching water or just as a wash basin, as well as my old trusty strainer that stays in there constantly that is still my dish drainer of choice. I realized pretty quickly that usually the sink would be open and so would the stovetop. That means when I'm cooking, I only have these like 4-inch strips with which to place things. So what I have come to do, my big old cutting board is usually found right there. It's either here if I'm using both burners, or I can put it like this if I'm utilizing the whole sink and one burner. I bet you can guess where those burns came from. This little no counter space problem has seen burger casualties, soda casualties, just a lot of spills. That being said, I'm glad I have a huge sink still. I've considered adding a flip-up table here, but I'm worried that with my forgetful nature, I will come barging through this door and rip the hinges out. Instead, I just use my rinky-dink fold-up TV table if I need to load extra dishes or anything else that needs extra counter space. While the size of the sink is still great, it really hasn't held up well. It is a plastic sink, and there are just a lot of cracks that hold a lot of staining that I haven't been able to get out. I've used Comet with bleach, I've soaked it, I think this is just in there forever. Functionally speaking, it's great. The faucet is high so I can get big things under it. The sink is large so I don't have drips of water everywhere. I'm still really happy with the layout of the kitchen. I still am also really happy that I chose the model with the larger fridge. I don't think that I would have been able to get away with just a half-size fridge without a freezer.
So, what has fallen apart? The first thing that I saw was the kick plate. So the screws have jostled out of the kick plate, and while it's still functional, that bottom row of screws is just done for. It's still waterproof. There's a lining that goes up under it. Not too worried about it. The next thing that seems to be completely disintegrating off of the rig is the original stabilizers. Now, I will take credit for the front pair meeting their untimely demise, but the back pair have lost all of their paint and are rusting like crazy. They still perform fine, but they look like they might fall off any day. The drawers and general woodworking leaves much to be desired. It's nothing that I wouldn't expect. I have been living in this full time for 2 years, and it's just showing about an appropriate amount of wear and tear. You just can't expect Amish craftsmanship for under 20 grand. Anything that's stapled, glued, or just held on because it doesn't know what else to do is beginning to pop off. Nothing that a little wood glue can't fix, but it is showing signs of wear and tear. What hasn't fallen apart? The roof. I've had no leaks. The water system. I've had no leaks. No major appliance problems other than replacing a circuit board in the water heater, but that's just an RV rite of passage, right? And I didn't have too many kinks to work out like a lot of people talk about. I think that that's luck of the draw with what appliances you get, but I didn't have any warranty work that needed done other than their circuit board. Overall, I'm satisfied with the build quality. It's to my expectations. When we talk about ride and maneuverability, it's a play in two parts, the truck and the trailer. This is Elvis. He's a 2017 Toyota Tacoma TRD Sport with 4-wheel drive and the towing package. I currently ride with a weight distribution hitch because I got my weights done and it was showing an unbalanced amount of weight in the back tires, and that makes perfect sense. The Tacoma is not made for towing, so it doesn't have these stiff leaf springs in the back that a standard towing vehicle would. After I moved to the weight distribution hitch, I can say that the ride is very good. There's very little impact this way when we hit a bump in the road, and things level out even smoother. I can't say it had an impact on trailer sway because I've never had a problem with trailer sway. The one problem with the weight distribution hitch is that it is my low point by about 6 inches on my rig. Remember how much I love how tall it is? That weight distribution hitch removes a lot of that maneuverability. When I'm going through ditches, especially anything deep, I dig into the hopefully dirt, sometimes concrete, and sometimes leave a gouge. It's just unavoidable. Other than ditches, small gas stations are pretty okay. I've been able to maneuver myself in and out of tight spaces. That being said, I can't make a U-turn on a 2-lane street no matter how much I want to believe I can. I end up doing a 42-point turn. I found that anywhere that a trailer can go, this thing can go. One thing Pearl and I were both disappointed to see in the new model years was that this over-the-bed window is gone. It's just a wall now in the 2019 and newer models. I think that's a total disgrace. This window provides a ton of breeze during hot nights, and the way that I orient myself to the sun, with the west being behind the camera, the east is usually right out this window, which means I get to see the sunrise in all of these beautiful places right from the comfort of my bed. It's one of my favorite things about living a nomadic life is being able to see the beauty from my bed, and I'd be really disappointed if I didn't have this window. So sad to see that, Dutchman. I wish you'd made a different choice. So what's my review? I love my home. I've been in it for 2 years and I haven't even really looked into any other option. Sure, there are times I wish I had more maneuverability with a van, but then you go through a 5-month quarantine where you don't leave Las Vegas and you have to run your air conditioner 24 hours a day. There have been times that I wanted a truck that had more power, but then I can sneak off into 4-wheel drive trails with my Tacoma and camp even farther into the backcountry. The kitchen has been enough. I have enough storage space. It's followed me to the ends of the earth and taken me to some of the most incredible places I've ever seen. I'm really happy with the way that I can live in this trailer. It allows me to be in the places that I want to be. There hasn't been too much maintenance. I haven't had to worry about it too much, and it's followed me to the ends of the earth. I think they put their money where it counted. Giant tanks, good tires in the suspension, an aluminum frame, and weatherizing the bottom so that you can go into colder temperatures.
Those are the things that have allowed me to camp longer and in spaces where other people might not be able to camp. Things like chipped woodwork or some screws falling out of the walls, those come with the territory of living in an RV. And I'm happy to do that as long as I'm keeping the rubber on the road. You don't live in an RV to just live in an RV. You live in an RV to see where it can take you. And this trailer has not held me back from going to the places I want to go and staying at them for the length of time that I want to stay at them. That's what it's all about. It doesn't hold me back, and it keeps me comfortable when I'm there. I've been living in this trailer for 2 years, and I can see myself continuing for a very long time. While I might not always live on the road, I can see RV travel being a part of my life forever, and this little trailer being my companion for many years to come. If you're considering this floor plan in a couple of different models, or this rig in particular, new or used, I give it my recommendation. If you have any questions, let me know. You just can't expect Amish craftsmanship. There we go. You just can't expect Amish craftsmanship for under 20 grand.
Living solely off solar power is so cool.
Why did it take an entire year to film and create this video? Well, because it requires me and my rig to be clean at the same time. Is that a horsefly on the inside?